Good morning, everybody. So first of all, thanks a lot for having me here for this talk. First time for me in Singapore, and very fascinated by this country. A lot of nice people and nice lesson to learn. The reason why I'm here today is to discuss with you about the open certification framework. As we just said, we are proud to launch the first worldwide certification for cloud services and providers. Actually, it hasn't been launched officially yet. It's going to be happening in September, as we will see later on. But I'm here today to give you some highlights about the certification, to clarify you some question mark if you would have any. And then we will follow up with a panel discussion about certification in the cloud. So I'm sorry, but you will need to see my face for the next 1 hour. Hopefully it's not going to be too boring. A couple of words about Cloud Security Alliance. So Cloud Security Alliance is a not-for-profit organization. It says there are 40,000 individuals. Actually, we are almost 47,000. We got about 200 corporate members and 66 chapters around the globe. CSA is a not-for-profit organization that dedicates itself to research and standard. We were founded in 2009. Jim Reeves, our founder and executive director, is in the room and will be giving a closing remark today. And we are working hard on a number of different topics on cloud security. Currently, we got over 25 working groups running. We do support governmental institutions in implementing their policy. We do support industries, and we try to help end users to better understand risk of cloud computing and the way to go about them. So that's the initial statement with which I like to open all my speeches. So the point here is not about discussing if cloud computing is an option or not for you in the future. Cloud computing is definitely the best option for your next future. The only decision you will need to take is how you are going to embrace the cloud. Cloud computing in 2013, traveling around the globe, discussing with our chapter representatives, with industry, we know that the level of adoption of cloud computing is it's boosting. We have been seeing yesterday a number of statistics about cloud adoption, and we know that definitely beside some early adopters, now we got a number of big institutions, including banks, that are approaching cloud computing and using cloud computing massively. And we see a lot of small and medium businesses as well to embrace the cloud, because it's simply the best solution for them. It's very convenient, it's very cost effective, and in the majority of the cases it's even much better from the security point of view. Now, how many of you knows the Go game? So, is perhaps the most fascinating game I ever played in my life. Exceptionally nice. It's about strategy. It's in principle a very simple game. After I was introduced to this game a few years ago, I taught my kids how to play. When I explained Go to my son, he was 4, and he picked it. He understood right away because it's very simple to understand. But no, despite the simplicity of the rules of this game, the game is very complex because it's about strategy. As a matter of fact, this is the only game which is a mathematical unsolved problem, right? You won't have a computer, to play and beat you as you will do with chess, for example. As well as Go, cloud is a very simple concept. It's about using computing as a utility. It's about, on-demand, pay as you go, as everybody knows. But despite this apparent simplicity, there are a number of, it's very complex in terms of, supply chain, in terms of jurisdiction where all the data centers are placed, and so on and so forth. And this complexity, in the real world, it generates barriers. Now, as many of you already know, but just I want to, reiterate the concept, there are a number of barriers to cloud adoption. First of all, lack of clarity about, definition and attribution of responsibilities and liabilities, difficulties in, establishing accountability in the supply chain, incoherent global legal framework. You know very well that both in terms of data sovereignty, in terms of data protection and privacy, there are a number of different regulations across the globe. I come from a place, Europe, where despite the presence of the European Union, which is supposed to harmonize the rules of the game, is still extremely divergent in many countries. For example, we got 27 different data protection and privacy legislation. And obviously, this complexity doesn't really help the adoption of a phenomenon like cloud that is supposed to be global in essence. There is a lack of transparency of from some service providers, difficulties in performing internal and external due diligence, which is kind of key if you want to make sure that things are going in the proper direction, lack of clarity about service level agreement, and in many cases missing the basic information about security level agreement, lack of interoperability, and lack of, in some cases, awareness and expertise. I've been traveling often since 2009, speaking in conferences about cloud computing, and sadly enough, I must say that the level of, of knowledge and awareness of many attendees and this is, I'm not saying that that's the case for today, but the level of awareness and knowledge and skills is not proceeding as fast as we would like to see. I'm hearing again and again same discussion around the same concept, which means that we are not proceeding as fast as we should in the way we approach the cloud, in the way we educate our community about cloud computing and cloud computing security. Now, in 3 words, we are facing a problem with lack of transparency, a lack of trust. And when we talk about lack of trust, it's because many of us is still grounded on a mindset which is not adequate anymore to the cloud paradigm. It's about the introduction of a new governance model. A new governance model which, in essence, is based on indirect control, is based on accountability, and is based on assurance. But those, 3 key words are very difficult, to put in practice. So the real question here is, how do we build trust and transparency? How do we manage to eliminate those barriers for cloud adoption? How do we manage to clarify responsibilities in the cloud, liabilities in the cloud? How we force our providers to compete on security? How do we make information security a business differentiator? How do we try to make clear, to increase the level of assurance by providing more information instead of, on playing an obscurity game? Definitely, in our view, and that's the reason why I'm here today, a certification scheme, it's a good way to proceed. Now, as you can see in this slide, there are a number of governmental institutions around the globe which are playing and implementing a very similar strategy. All these strategies are normally based on 3 pillars. One, it's about the adoption of standards. The other one is about fostering a certification, especially on the security side. And the other one is endorse those certifications in a way to meet legal and regulatory needs and compliance requirements and obligation. I'm very familiar, being a European, with the approach that the European Union is taking on this side. As a matter of fact, I'm chairing a number of committees of the European Commission on the implementation of the strategy, but discussing with Aloysius, which is our APAC Managing Director, I know that the same is happening in many countries in Asia Pacific as well. So we heard yesterday that Singapore is about to launch a new standard on certification. We know that Thailand, for example, it's on the same page, very keen on implementing an accreditation scheme for their internal market. The same is happening, we heard, in Hong Kong, and so on and so forth. So there are many similarities, and definitely we see, policymakers see that the use of certification can be the right way to go, the right way to show how companies are matching the requirements and the needs of both policymakers and consumer. So a provider certification, in essence, is meant to have, it's meant to increase the consumer trust and confidence in the cloud system, to improve the overall level of security and transparency, which is definitely key for a better adoption of cloud, and assist cloud provider and consumer in achieving regulatory compliance. Because one of the main issues so far, one of the main doubts from the consumer side was, how can I be compliant by using cloud services? If I'm not in the position, for example, to perform any audit on my provider, how am I going to be sure that the provider is really doing what is promising me to do? On the certification side, as I mentioned before, we have seen, we know already about, US that very long time ago launched the FedRAMP program. Singapore, Thailand, China, Hong Kong, Taiwan. In Europe, there are a number of member states which are looking at a certification and accreditation scheme. For example, the UK government has launched an accreditation scheme for their internal G Cloud. So, as I said before, the direction taken by many countries around the globe is, let's try to use a certification scheme in order to increase the level of trust, the level of transparency and assurance in this market. But obviously, introducing a certification scheme is not easy. There are a number of challenges that need to be addressed, and that actually we have been facing while working on our open certification scheme. So first of all, being cloud computing a global phenomenon, the certification scheme has to be by definition global. I do appreciate that there are a number of governments which are interested in having a national accreditation scheme, which it might be an intermediate step, but necessarily this national accreditation scheme or certification scheme has to be has to found some sort of communication and level and a uniformity with other certification schemes in other countries, because they need to talk the same language. Because otherwise, we will be in the position where a company, let's say Google, Microsoft, or Amazon, that wants to provide services in many different countries, they will need to go through different process of accreditation scheme, which is simply not cost effective. And if they don't get a cost-effective solution for their certification, this lack of efficiency is going to be then paid by the user, as simple as that. But at the same time, a certification scheme has to address, some national, state, and regional compliance needs. each country has, I mean, some particular requirements, some particular needs. So I'm not saying that being global means that all the it has to be uniform across different countries. It has to have, you know, a common, a core set of specification which is common across the certification scheme, but then it has to be flexible enough to make sure that some specific needs can be addressed in the context of this global approach. It has to address industry-specific requirements, address different assurance requirements, so being able to provide different level of assurance depending on which kind of business you are in, so which level of assurance you will need. It needs to be to solve the problem of, you know, point-in-time certification. Everybody knows that, you know, for ISO 27001 is a sort of gold standard for security. It's the most widely adopted certification, security certification worldwide. But it has a problem, I mean, or at least a limitation. It has a limitation to be a point-in-time certification, which means that you know that a certain organization is compliant and secure today, is going to be rechecked in 6 months or in 12 months, but nobody knows, I mean, what is happening between today and the next 6 months. So in order to be able to check, I mean, if those requirements are continuously fulfilled, we need to make sure that we introduce a certification that is not just a point-in-time certification. And based on, you know, these challenges, we have been trying to shape our open certification scheme. So the open certification framework. The open certification framework, first of all, it's an industry-led certification. What we thought when we were conceiving the OCF was that there would be no certification scheme that would fly without the consensus of the industry. We thought that, I mean, unless we were going to go for an industry-led initiative, something that would be accepted and used by the industry, or, I mean, there would have been no chance for success. It's flexible, it's meant to be multi-layer, it's based on CSA best practices, it's integrated with third-party assessment and attestation. Initially, we will base our two certification, STAR certification and STAR attestation, on ISO 27001 and SOC 2, the previous SAS 70 certification. That's the structure of OCF. So as I said before, it's a multi-layer certification. So we got 3 different levels of certification, each one of them providing a different level of assurance and transparency. The first level, which is already available, is called STAR, is a self-assessment. So if you go on our website, you can find information on about 30 companies that voluntarily have decided to publish on our website the result of a due diligence audit. This is an exercise of transparency, and we are very proud, I mean, to host the goodwill of these companies that decide to provide this information. But this is a self-certification. And as I said, I mean, depending on the level of assurance and transparency, especially assurance that you want to show, that might be enough or might not be enough. So the second level, it's about a third-party certification. As I said before, we got 2 different flavors. We got the attestation and certification, depending on the route you want to take, if either SAS 70, SOC 2, or ISO 27001. The third level, which is going to be available in 2015, is going to be about continuous monitoring-based certification. That's the timeline. So the concept of OCF was launched in Q4 2011. In Q4 2011, we launched the STAR Registry. In Q1 2013, we launched the concept of OCF. In Q3 2013, so in September, we are going to officially launch STAR certification, while in 2015, as I said before, we are going to introduce the certification based on continuous monitoring. I already mentioned, STAR. We currently have about 30 companies which have already submitted the due diligence assessment on our website. It's based on CSA best practices. My recommendation is go on our website, check some of the questionnaire, and in a way you can get some better information about the registry. The step 2, it's about the STAR certification, as I said. So the concept behind, and I'm going to be very brief because I'm running out of time, but the concept behind the STAR certification is very simple. We said ISO 27001, as I said before, is a gold standard, but it doesn't necessarily fit the need of the cloud market. It's not fit for purpose. It's not cloud specific. If you go through the Annex A of ISO 27001, you will figure out that the controls you got there are good enough for an on-premise solution, but they do not necessarily cover all the specificity of the cloud. So we said, let's try to increment the controls we got in Annex A with CCM, which is now the most widely used security control framework for cloud computing. And the second limitation we thought to bypass and the improvement if compared with ISO 27001, it's about the transparency on the scope. Now, according to normal practice, the scope of an ISO 27001 certification is supposed to be public. But as you know very well, not always the scope of the certification is made public, which means that you might get the information that a company is ISO 27001 certified, but you don't really know what's the scope of the certification. Now, you would agree with me that if you know that, I got a certification, but you don't know what's the scope of that certification, that information is fairly useful for you, useless for you. And the other improvement is about the transparency on the statement of applicability, which means what kind of control I've been audited against. So the STAR certification has in essence, evaluates the efficiency of an organization's information security management system. As I said before, it builds on ISO 27001. As a matter of fact, it's going to be compliant. It's going to be compliant with ISO 27006 and ISO 17018. It's based upon the plan, do, check out approach. And it's meant to be, as I said before, fit for purpose and SLA driven. Now, we skip a few slides. One of the newly introduced by the STAR certification, as opposed to ISO 27001, is the introduction of a maturity model. How does it work? In essence, the auditor is going to assess the organization based on the domain of cloud control matrix. For each domain, you're going to receive a score and a maturity model, and you're going to be basically you're going to be a score in 5 different levels. So you go from no formal approach till an optimized approach. This information, though, are meant to be a guidance for the candidate organization to improve in the following audit. It's not meant to be it's not meant to be a public evaluation. So, in essence, as we will see we are going to give to the company an award certificate that says no award, a bronze award, silver award, and gold award. This information is not going to be public. As I said before, it's just meant to be a guidance for the company to improve in the future, to get more mature and build on their own limitation. The information is not going to be public. The only public information that you will see, it's about the certification. So on this Cloud Security Alliance website, you will see that company X has been awarded of the STAR certification. You will see what's the scope of the certification, what's the statement of applicability, so again, which are the controls that the company has been audited against, but you're not going to see any of the level they got. You're not going to see, the level of maturity of this company. And this is done for a very simple reason, that we want to avoid organization to misuse for marketing purposes the award they get. So we don't want to, basically to let organizations to use information that might be misleading for the end user. Yes, I got that's my last slide. So about very quickly on the pilot. Before launching the certification scheme, we thought it was sound to have a few pilots. We have just completed the 2 pilots in Asia Pac. We thank a lot Alibaba and the New Taipei City government to agree to perform the pilot with us. As you can see here, the 2 pilots has been completed. They were supposed to be a proof of concept on the use of ISO 27001 plus CCM. They were supposed to gather supporting information to improve on our conceptual framework, gather feedback. The results are very encouraging in a way that both pilots went very well. Apparently the 2 organizations were pleased with the result of the pilot and the way the audit was conducted. And in essence, we got confirmation that OCF STAR certification works in real life. In terms of next step, we are going to open the lead auditor certification training in September. Actually, BSI, the British Standard Institution, is going to lead this effort. We are going to launch the STAR certification in September again. The objective is to have at least 10 organizations certified by the end of 2013. In 2014, we are going to start piloting Cloud Audit and Cloud Trust Protocol, which are 2 underlining initiatives to support the continuous monitoring certification. And we will introduce the STAR continuous monitoring in 2015. Not sure if we're going to have time for questions. But anyway, we'll have a panel discussion to dig into the certifications.
That's right. Thanks, Danielle, and I think everyone will agree this is the exact road that we need as an industry to further the adoption of cloud. So.